You're listening to 87 Live on 87 Sports Fans Radio.
That's us.
That is us. It's the September 25th edition. Keith Grieve and Steve Taylor from the best sports blog that you don't visit, 87sportsfans.com.
That was great. I'm sorry. Out of all of your intro lines you've ever had, that could possibly be the best.
That is sad. That is truly sad.
But it's impressive, all the same. I am very impressed by that.
A reminder that this and every broadcast is brought to you by CG Imaging. CG-imaging.com is the website there, virtually creating reality. If you want to take part in the broadcast, the phone number to call in is area code 585-633-7487. Once again, 585-633-7487. The email is youguysuck@87sportsfans.com. We're also on Twitter at 87sportsfans and Facebook.com/87sportsfans. So, hello, Mr. Taylor.
Hi, man.
Welcome everyone. This is going to be a fantastic show. We did have a late cancellation. The sportologist, Lamont Broadus, is not going to be able to be with us today, so we will probably hold off on the Southeast Conference breakdown until we have him in-house, just because it's a better conversation when he's around.
Yeah.
So we'll be making up a segment as we go along. Oh, I know you're excited.
That's what we do best, though, making up crap as we go along.
I know everyone's excited about the two of us just freelancing and just making crap up as we go along.
It's what keeps the world going around.
Something like that. Yes, sure.
Yes.
Sure. Yes, have some.
Yes, have some.
Alrighty. So let's start in Major League Baseball as we head down the home stretch. We'll start in the National League because that's the one I care about the most.
Of course it is.
Oh, yeah, duh. So we'll just start there. Everything is all wrapped up. The Braves, like we said last week, winning the East. The Dodgers with the West. And the Diamondbacks breaking my heart. I was so set to look like a genius when they actually followed through on my prediction and they won the West Division. But the Central Division still not completely all closed up. We're at the 158 game mark, so that means 4 games left for most of these teams. The Pirates are still 2 games behind the St. Louis Cardinals and the Cincinnati Reds with 3 games to go. In the wild card standings, those teams have all locked it all up. So as it sits right now, if Pittsburgh and Cincinnati don't flip-flop spots for the final, for the 2 wild card, we'll have Atlanta as the 1 seed, St. Louis as the 2 seed, the Dodgers as the 3 seed, and then Pittsburgh and Cincinnati, the 2 wild cards, the 4 and the 5 seed.
Which, I mean, honestly, those are by far, out of both leagues, the 2 most dangerous wildcard teams. Because there was such a close margin between them and the teams that ended up winning the division, that really the National League is wide open. As much as the Braves were dominant the entire season, I think the National League is going to be, I mean, who knows who's going to come out of the National League. It is, I wouldn't be surprised if it was the Pirates. I wouldn't be surprised if it was Cincinnati. You know, everyone's favorite is probably the Dodgers right now. To me, that's going to be such an interesting development on who is going to be the front runner in that division.
When you think about it, though, the Braves, the Cardinals, and the Dodgers, there's no reason that any of us should have been as down on any team. And while we expected the Dodgers, I mean, I didn't pick them to win the division, but I thought they'd be around 500. But they won 91 games. The team out of the 3 division winners that surprised me the most is the Atlanta Braves, because I really thought that Nationals team, and I know they were beset by injuries all year, but I really thought the Nationals had this division all wrapped up as soon as spring training started, and I guess that's why when you have a 6-month season and 162 games, making predictions is damn near impossible.
Yeah.
But they won 93 games, and you know, if you look at BaseballReference.com, they actually have a stat to figure out luck. Okay. And
really?
Yes. And the luckiest team, according to this, in the National League was the Phillies, who won 7 games more than they should have. And they only won 72, so that just tells you why Charlie Manuel was fired. Yeah. The most unluckiest team was the Chicago Cubs, who lost 6 games more. than they should have. But the Braves were -1 in that category. So you can't say that things just went their way. They went out and earned it, if you believe in statistics as much as I do. And on a side note, there's my Mets at a perfect 0. They won 72 games so far, and that's exactly what they were supposed to win.
Yeah.
By this. But anyway, Pittsburgh winning 91 games. I don't want to sound like an idiot, but every week I talk about it. It just blows me away that this team is where it is based on where they were years ago. And the further they go in the postseason, the better off that Major League Baseball is going forward.
Well, and they're the perfect team to be the face of baseball because it shows that spending a lot of money on these overblown steroid-using players as opposed to just being patient and getting young talent that no one has heard of and working with them and making them better and making the team better eventually will pay off. They're the poster child. I mean, a lot of people will look at the Oakland Athletics, who was also, in my opinion, a big surprise this season. But the Pirates are kind of in that same category where people looked at them and they said, listen, I knew they were a good team, but I never expect them to be where they were. And it all boils down to, Billy Beane and the way, whoever has seen Moneyball, it seems like these two teams are kind of following his example of find the right players for the right positions. They might not be the best in the major leagues in that position, but if you put good enough in every position, you will win games. And that's what seems like is going on with the Pirates. Because honestly, you ask anyone who is a baseball novice, name one person on the Pirates or on the Athletics, no one will be able to do it.
Right.
Which, unfortunately, not many people can name people on baseball teams because baseball's kind of in the decline. But, at least on the Red Sox and the Yankees and all the names that are always thrown out there, people can always pick somebody. On those two teams, you'll be hard-pressed to find somebody that knows anyone on those teams.
Baseball, the sport is a unique animal. And it's so funny because my whole theory on sports is that the more players that are on the field at one time, the harder it is to have one superstar that clearly carries games.
Yeah.
But football has more players on the field, and you know who the superstars are in that sport. You know what I mean? So it's just weird. Baseball is a game where it's a team sport based on individual performances more so than anything else. Football is the ultimate team sport where everyone has to be working together to be successful. Baseball takes a step back from that, and basketball is a sport where the championship teams are the ones that actually play like a team and use all 5 guys. But it is more possible in that sport to have one guy carry a team, maybe not for a series, but for a game. Carry a team and put a win on one person's back.
And to me, I agree with you 100%. I just look at baseball as one of those things where if you do have that one standout player, the steroid era has put that asterisk next to anyone that excels above and beyond. I mean, look at Chris Davis this year for the Orioles. He's been out of his mind hitting 52 home runs, hitting the team record as far as passing Brady Anderson for the record in home runs. But there have been questions about, hey, is he taking steroids? Is this all natural? There's been talk like that with Albert Pujols over the last few years. It seems like with baseball, if you do have that big name that's ahead of everyone else, there's automatically a stigma put on them, even if they're innocent, about steroids. And so it's kind of sad. I mean, I miss those days where you had those superstars. I mean, you and I both grew up in the 80s, and, for you had, Darryl Strawberry and Doc Gooden. For me, I had Don Mattingly. You never had any questions like that about these guys. They were just your heroes. But nowadays, it's tough to find those same role models. You agree, or do you think I'm just speaking on my ass?
Well, no, you're not talking. I was letting you finish your point because I know I have a bad habit. I know I have a bad habit of interrupting you.
Sometimes I need it.
Okay. Well, no, you were fine. You were making a point, and I was going to let you go with it. I don't think they're fewer and farther between. I think that people take when you hear a player that's having a year or a couple of years, like say Miguel Cabrera in Detroit, who has just been fantastic, and you hear them being billed as probably the best hitter in the game today, your first instinct, and you can't help it, your first instinct is to question how legit it really is. You know? But when you look at the numbers, now I was looking at, in a minute, folks, we'll name our NL and AL MVPs and Cy Young Awards. I was looking, doing research to try to make an informed decision, and the leader in the National League for home runs is and I'm right now that I need to call it out, I'm blanking on it naturally, but the number was 36 home runs.
Yeah,
and that just blows me away, because we just got done with an era where 40 or 50 was considered the norm for a slugger. And now we're back to where we were in the late 80s. It's Paul Goldschmidt, by the way, in Arizona with 36. And then Pedro Alvarez with 34, Jay Bruce with 30, Dominic Brown from the Phillies at 27. This is a remarkable reduction in power. And if you're skeptical like I am, the numbers don't prove towards justifying that skepticism at this point. Yeah, sure, people are going to try to get away with stuff from every now and then, and we've beat that horse completely to death. But the numbers don't point that way. Your National League leader in home runs is probably going to hit 38 home runs. Is going to finish under 40, which is how I remembered. I think it was Darryl Strawberry in 1987 or 88 or 89 won the title with 39 home runs or something like that. And then Cecil Fielder came by and started bashing 40 and 50 in Detroit out of nowhere. And I want to see his blood test, but we're talking about that in the 80s for sure. That's for sure.
42 proof. Is that his blood?
Right. All right. So back on the wild card. So the way that it works in baseball, for those of you that don't know, with the new system, you have your 3 division winners and you have your 2 wild card teams, and those 2 wild card teams play for a winner-take-all, 1-game shot 2 days after the final day of the regular season to determine who goes to the NLDS and have the elite privilege of playing the Atlanta Braves, the 93-win Atlanta Braves. I mean, the good news is, if you think about it, in the NL, your best team is 93 wins, and your weakest or your lowest seed, the 5 seed, is right now Cincinnati with 90 wins. There's only 3 games separating that. So
and that's kind of what I was saying before. You have either the Pirates or the Reds. Whoever plays Atlanta has a good chance of beating them.
Yeah, no, it's nothing's set in stone. There's still compelling baseball to watch, to be sure.
Yeah.
But Pittsburgh at Cincinnati, now you have 2 division rivals who have been beating up on each other all year, who don't necessarily think that highly of one another, although Cincinnati-St. Louis is more of a rivalry.
Yeah.
So in a 1-game shot, looking at these teams, I would have to put my money on Pittsburgh just because I like their offense a little bit better. Even though statistically they're not leading, they're about even, I guess. But I just like their lineup better, and I'm sure that they'll throw. You look at who's having the best year on the mound. Francisco Liriano with 16 wins. Well, then you have the veteran presence of A.J. Burnett, who, he's 9-11, but he's 36 years old. He pitched in some similar situations with the Yankees. Whether or not he was successful is another story, but he was around that kind of culture. So they have some options there. Where I think the Reds have a supreme advantage is in the bullpen with Aroldis Chapman. That kid just throws gas, and he's a left-hander, and the Pirates don't have that kind of bullpen.
No.
So if Cincinnati gets a lead, it's an 8-inning game, pretty much, in my book. But if you had to pick Pittsburgh or Cincinnati, who would you pick?
Well, as a fan of the game, I would pick, and for my good friend Mike and his wife Carrie, if they're listening, I apologize because she's a huge Cincinnati Reds fan. I would have to go Pittsburgh for a number of reasons. First off, to me, they are the story of the year. They are this team that it's been 20 years since they've been in the playoffs. They have a bunch of no-names. They are a team that they're a team that Major League Baseball needs to be in the postseason. They're that young upstart break the mold kind of team that if they can be successful, it will not only be good for baseball, but it would be. Why are you playing in the background?
It's the Incredible Hulk theme. Every time you go on this nice little soliloquies, they give you the right background.
Jesus. I'm going to pick the Pittsburgh Pirates, okay? I think they're great. I think they're going to be great. You can go to hell. I love that song, though. The Lonely Man theme is great. I feel like putting on a backpack and walking down my street.
Try to hitch a ride. Mr. Grieve, don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
You wouldn't like it when I give you the wrong pick.
Right. That's why I thought you were going all sentimental and going to pick Cincinnati because of our ties with our friends.
No, I'm going to pick Pittsburgh because it's what we want to see. Everyone wants to see Pittsburgh. You want to see Pittsburgh.
I want to see Pittsburgh. I'm mad, and we're going to talk about the American League in a minute. I'm mad that the Royals are out of it now. But so we could see a Royals-Pittsburgh World Series and an all-red trunker version of the World Series. That would be just... do I have to...
At least half is there. That would be good if half was there.
Should I explain the red trunk, or should I just let it go?
No, just let it go.
Right,
it'll be too long.
Okay. So let's go over to the American League now. The Boston Red Sox wrapping up the AL East, the Tigers having the Central, and the Oakland Athletics winning 94 games.
Which is insane.
Just ridiculous. One game behind the Boston Red Sox for the number one seed, as we see right now, which is just, there's no other word for it. It's just insane.
It's insane.
I did not think that team had nearly enough pitching to pull that off. I'm looking at the head-to-head records. Okay, so Oakland beat the Yankees 5 times. All right, they beat the Red Sox 3 times. They beat the Rays 3 times. They beat the White Sox 5 times. They beat the Royals 5 times. They beat the Twins 6 times. They beat the Astros 15 times.
That's crazy.
They beat the Angels 11 times, and this is all in their division. They beat the Angels 11 times, the Astros 15 times, and the Rangers 10 times.
Yeah.
That's a phenomenal year. Even if they go out and tank it in the playoffs, which I don't think they will, but even if they do, that's a phenomenal year.
See, the sad part is one of my favorite people in the history of Major League Baseball is Bobby Valentine, especially after he snuck back into the game with a fake mustache on. But I think this proves that maybe he wasn't the right man for the job last year.
Well, it's people want to ride Bobby Valentine and say he can't coach, he doesn't know what he's doing.
I didn't say he can't coach.
No, I'm not saying you are. I'm saying that people have. Just because somebody has a train wreck of a season like Bobby Valentine did last year, doesn't mean that the guy is clueless. In retrospect, those players were not ready for a manager like Valentine.
No.
Because they came off the Francona era where they were basically allowed to do whatever the hell they wanted. I know that's an exaggeration, but in contrast to Valentine, who wants things his way and more of an authoritarian figure, of course there was backlash and the players were all, oh, somebody kicked my dog, I don't want to play anymore.
Yeah.
But, I don't know.
Now, I got a question for you. Have you ever seen a team throw away their opportunity worse than the New York Yankees have in the last couple weeks? They are 3 for 7 in their last 10 games after they were 1 game out of the wild card.
You say throw away. What would you have done differently?
Now as a Yankee fan, I've watched more than half of the games I'm talking about. The others, I at least seen the highlights. They just seemed like they gave up. It seems like they were more interested, and now mind you, I'm 100% behind this, but they were more interested in how they were going to properly send off Rivera instead of what they needed to do to make sure they won the games they needed to win. For a team that has the history and the pride that the New York Yankees have, it just seems like they didn't put forth the effort they needed to. Maybe it was the whole psychological thing of losing Jeter officially for the rest of the season. But it just, I don't know, for a team that has the talent they have and the money they've put into it, when you know that 2 of the greatest postseason baseball players ever to live in Mariano Rivera and Andy Pettitte are going to be retiring, don't you think those players in that dugout or in that clubhouse would have found a way, would have done something, would have reached deep down and would have played their asses off to make sure they made it to the postseason. And that's not what I've seen in the last 10 games. You know, they lost they lost 4 games in a row, 3 to Boston, 1 to Toronto. I mean, they were 1-2 in the 3-game series with Toronto.
Yeah.
Now, even though they're at Toronto, Toronto is a team that's in the cellar this year. I know they're a team that's talented. We thought would be better, but the reality is they're in the cellar. That should have been a 3-game sweep. If you're a team that has the talent the Yankees have and you have the postseason in your sights, you find a way. So to me, I'm kind of disgusted with what has happened over the last 2 weeks with the New York Yankees. I'll be honest with you.
Well, I just this is an old team, and then this is what happens in September to old teams. Doesn't matter how talented a player is. You look, and I'm trying to weed out. I'm looking at the 40-man roster right now, and we got Mariano Rivera, 43. Andy Pettitte, 41. Derek Jeter obviously didn't play much. If any, can't even count. You can't even say he played this year.
No.
39. Ichiro, 39. Hiroki Kuroda is at. And now my sorted list went away. Why? Why is this? Always, it's a conspiracy. I tell you. Hiroki Kuroda, 38. A-Rod, 37. I don't think of A-Rod as being 37. Alfonso Soriano, who's the big midseason acquisition, 37 years old. Travis Hafner, 36 years old. Lyle Overbay, 36 years old. Chris Bootcheck, 34. Yeah, I know. He's on the 40-man roster, so he gets mentioned. Vernon Wells, 34. Kevin Youkilis, 34. Mark Teixeira, 33. Curtis Granderson, 32. CC Sabathia, 32. There's not a whole lot of youth on this team, and when you're looking at the players that are in their mid-20s, you get names like Dylan Betances, Preston Claiborne, Vidal Nuno, Adam Warren. You know what I mean? These are not household names. There is no the youngest player with any kind of name recognition is Ivan Nova at 26, and then Phil Hughes at 27. And Jabba Chamberlain at 27. Those are 2 guys that are not going to be remembered well by Yankee fans.
No, not at all.
You got Dark Helmet, Francisco Cervelli at 27. This is what happens to old teams.
Even in the future, nothing works.
And you know what? He doesn't even wear that helmet anymore. He had 2 years ago, he had a concussion situation in the spring training, so he wore this oversized helmet, and it looked just like Rick Moranis from the movie Spaceballs. That's all I could see when he was up. It was hot. Too hot. All right, so the AL, the way the AL wild card is breaking down right now, it's going to be, Texas is still a game out, so they still have something to say. But right now, Tampa Bay and Cleveland are both deadlocked for that last. Actually, Tampa Bay has a 1-game lead on Cleveland for the 4 seed. So it's Tampa Bay and Cleveland, supposing Texas doesn't eke its head in there. I love that the story of Cleveland, maybe only for no other reason than for Major League. I still think Bob Uecker's in the press box there, but I know that's not true. But I'm going to have to pick the Rays in that wild card matchup. What about you?
It's just tough to say. I am going to pick Cleveland mainly because of who they have running their team. You look at both teams, and now how big? First off, I know I'm kind of getting off topic here, but how big of a example? I guess I could use example. Did he prove Jason Giambi last night, the oldest baseball player ever to hit a walk-off home run? And if you watch any of those highlights, he was lauded as a savior, as this wonderful, great, everyone was loving him, blah, blah, blah. This is a guy that was in that steroid issue that was going on years ago where no one was acknowledging that they took steroids. He was the only one that spoke up, said, I took them, I apologize, I was an asshole for doing it, please forgive me. And now he's this, at least in Cleveland, this beloved figure where no other of those players are looked at fondly by their teams or by pretty much most baseball fans. I hope this is a good example. And I was thinking that today when I was watching the highlight. I hope this is a good example for all those guys that have taken steroids, or if you have, or if you haven't been caught yet and you are caught. Just be honest. If you're honest, take your punishment. Good things will happen. It's when you lie and try to be a douchebag like A-Rod and Palmeiro and Ryan Braun that all of the negative will come down on you. So I don't know. I got off on a tangent. I'm going to say Cleveland just because I think they're equally as talented as Tampa, and they have a much better management staff.
I was looking at Jason Giambi, in the interviews, the post-game interviews, and as he hit his walk-off home run and touched home plate, and the only thing I'm thinking of is, holy crap, he's got a gray beard. He's old, but he still looks jacked. So test his blood. I can't stand him. I
was waiting for you to say that.
I just can't stand him. All right, let's take a quick.
You know what? If you don't have gray hair, if you're that.
If you are,
I just made that up.
I know. Anyway, let's take a break. When we come back, Steve and I will give our picks for the MVPs and Cy Youngs in the American League and the National League. You won't want to miss that talk, I promise you. You're listening to 87 Live on 87 Sports Fans Radio.
On the leaves of
Oh my gosh.
We got to do Cy Youngs.
Wait, we just had a huge technical difficulty.
What happened?
We were never back on the air.
Are you fucking lying to me?
Now you're on the air, and now you just dropped it. The mute button was hit. So you know what?
God.
We're gonna take another break, folks. Apologize for it. When we come back, Jim Sarantias is gonna join us for the NFL Hour, and that will go off without a hitch.
If any kids were listening, I did not mean anything by the F word.
You're listening to 87 Live on 87 Sports Fans You're listening to 87 Live on 87 Sports Fans Radio, and you can actually hear me this time. This is the NFL Hour with Jim Sarantias from thefantasygreek.com. Follow him on Twitter at thefantasygreek. But before we get into it, since you didn't hear the last one, now I have to talk to you about CG Imaging and what they do. They take your ideas and they bring them to realistic. They bring it to a level of reality through 3D animation that you just would not think possible. So, go to their website, cg-imaging.com. CG Imaging, virtually creating reality. I gave you the short version because I'm just out of my mind right now. So, looking at our Week 3 picks, we agreed on most of the games last week except for two. Kansas City at Philadelphia. Steve-O and myself picked the Eagles like a bunch of idiots. And Jim, you were the only one that had the foresight to predict Kansas City was going to go into Philadelphia and take that game. What were your thoughts watching that game? I got to tell you, I'm a believer in the Kansas City defense now. I was very impressed with how they played.
My God, they were just outstanding. I don't have their numbers in front of me, but obviously they held that team in check. I think they had one defensive touchdown or two. Just fantastic. They're a must-add this week, obviously, and a must-play this weekend. And I want to say 4 out of the next 5, I think they have favorable matchups. The one thing that I'm still scratching my head on, and it's sort of an area of cause of concern for fantasy football managers anyway, is the pretty much complete lack of a real passing game on the part of the Chiefs. Alex Smith, I don't think he had a single touchdown.
No.
If he threw it to Dwayne Bowe, he was maybe a handful of times. There is a talent there that is just going absolutely to waste. That having been said, Donnie Avery was very impressive, catching all the underneath stuff and the slants. He's fast, and he's a guy that I think you can get on your bench and work into the bye weeks. But I mean, that's one of those things, though, that I think the Chiefs need to. It's someday. I'm going to use the word explore, because someday they're going to play the Broncos, and I know that defense is good, and I'm sure it'll be tough on Peyton Manning, but they're going to have to score on the Broncos.
Yeah.
They're not going to do it on the ground.
That's the thing is, in one of our drafts, one of the leagues I'm in, I talked my wife into drafting Dwayne Bowe, and you're right, Jim. I mean, in this game, he was only targeted 3 times. He had 1 reception for 4 yards.
Stupid.
That just is mind-boggling.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling. And, and speaking of the draft, I remember this offseason, by the way, statistically, the Chiefs have one of, if not the, most pass-friendly schedules among all teams, or at least they had it walking into the season. Mm. And I remember somebody trying to make the argument with me that, Dwayne Bowe's going to have this breakout season, and, they're a pass-friendly schedule, and, if you're comparing him to Mike Williams, you definitely should be taking Dwayne Bowe. And I'm kind of looking at him, and I'm looking at his past statistics and saying to myself, how many times have we heard that?
Yeah.
And again, we heard it, and again, he's falling flat on his face. So, it's only week 4, but someday here, Andy Reid, come on. Have Alex Smith throw Dwayne Bowe the ball.
Yeah.
It was
could be that late season little boost if they ever find themselves in a rut. If you assume as soon as they get him going, I mean, between him and the way Donnie Avery's playing, they have a very dangerous receiving core.
He was so dead set on throwing any kind of risky ball that it was just kind of like, well, if I'm not 100% sure it's going to be completed, I'm just not going to throw it. Do
you think he's a little afraid of losing his job to a rookie again?
I think he's afraid of everyone saying, "Oh, here goes Alex Smith again."
Yeah.
So.
Well, the one thing I found about I didn't really think about this with the Eagles, the way their fast-paced, high-powered offense is working. Their 3 games happened in an 11-day stretch. So to think about it, the Philadelphia Eagles, new offense, fast-paced offense, some older players on their team. 3 games in 11 days. To me, that was shocking. I don't know why I didn't even think of that, but that could have factored in to why they're 1-2 right now. Because they looked like they were flat against Kansas City. They looked like a tired team.
Possibly.
Yeah. You know, the fellow that I had do the game review on the website, thefantasygreek.com, he...
Nice plug.
I know. Yeah, I had to just sneak that in. And especially when Keith wasn't listening. And
like I'm the gatekeeper. No plugging websites.
And he also pointed that out in his game review, and I was like, that's absolutely true. They have, from the first game to the second and third game, sort of slowed down how they're running their offense, and that might actually be hurting them.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed. Well, we're going to bring you a new segment, folks. This is going to be our NFL Roundtable, where we go through, we all take turns and don't talk for hours and hours on end about last week's games. So let's get the music going, and even though we just talked about it a little bit, I'll give you my take on Kansas City and Philly, and we will start the roundtable right now. So you like that? Like that got a little instrumental music in the background there. Chiefs 26, Eagles 16. Andy Reid's return to Philly turns out to be much better for him than his former employer, who must have felt so bad about letting him go. They gave him 5 turnovers, a win, and people starting to think that the Chiefs team may be onto something. The only thing more fun than trying to pick which Eagle was going to give the ball up next was waiting for Alex Smith to make a risky throw. Give the guy credit, he just would not do it. But Philadelphia's hurry up and wait offense sure looked human. Steve-O, Green Bay, Cincinnati.
Okay, Green Bay, Cincinnati. Green Bay, I think one of the things that they did, and a lot of people are doing, is underestimating the talent level on Cincinnati. But then also Green Bay Packers, you have to look at the fact that they are suffering from a lot of injuries. I mean, they're on their third running back now, a rookie who had a big fumble in a major point of the game. They've also lost, they lost Clay Matthews during the game, which is obviously their leader on defense. And then once again, is Aaron Rodgers taking over for Peyton Manning as the great quarterback, I'm using quotation fingers, that cannot win in the clutch. That is Green Bay, Cincinnati.
Jim, St. Louis, and Dallas.
St. Louis and Dallas. I'll tell you, this was a game where Tony Romo, fourth, just another decent outing, keeping him as sort of a high QB2, low QB1 in fantasy circles. I mean, it was actually just impressive enough because, he was able to win the game for the Cowboys. And what was really impressive from the standpoint of the Cowboys, besides Marco Murray's just outstanding game of close to 200 all-purpose yards, was they shut down a pretty good Rams passing offense. Sam Bradford was stifled with 240 yards passing, 1 pass TD, which just threw off the numbers of all his receivers. I mean, the go-to guys have been Tavon Austin, Chris Gibbons, and Jared Cook, and combined, the three of them maybe put up 120, 125 yards receiving, with the sole touchdown pass going to Austin Pettis, who I doubt that anybody has him in fantasy, and you shouldn't. So I'm walking out of this game thinking to myself, the Cowboys, their defense, they've looked great. I think they're available in some fantasy leagues. They're definitely a defense to have and play in the right situations. And the Rams, I think they're 0-3 now, and boy, they need a win.
All right, Titans 20, Chargers 17. Justin Hunter hauls in the back shoulder throw from Jake Locker to seal the game, just like everybody thought, right? I picked them last week, and I said I didn't like it. It was like saying you'll call when you both know the number's getting deleted as soon as the car door is closed. It just felt dirty. The Titans racked up 452 total yards, and their defense is apparently living up to that traditional Titans defense, that image of that Titans defense. Chargers quarterback Phillip Rivers was as hot as any quarterback can be after 2 games, and they tamed this offense and gave their own offense a shot to win it. So say what you want about Locker and whether or not he is the long-term solution at the quarterback position. That throw that he made to win that game was a big boy throw and followed an incompletion to Damian Williams that would have been as equally impressive. So tip your hat, Titans win. Steve-O, Cleveland, Minnesota.
Okay, I think the Cleveland Browns have shown the rest of the NFL, if you want to win a game, you have to trade away your best player. Because after they traded away Trent Richardson, everyone pretty much said they were not going to, win a game, but they were pretty much dead and buried as an NFL team the rest of the season. In come the Minnesota Vikings with the awesomely bad Christian Ponder, who I think, and as much as I hope he's feeling better, a lot of people in Minnesota are probably looking at his injury is potentially the best thing that happened to that team, because now they're going to London with against a team like the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are equally struggling, and with Matt Castle coming up to the plate as the quarterback. And for me, I mean, what can you say about the Browns? The Browns, they had a miracle. I don't think it's going to last. This game, to me, was a game of nothing versus nothing, and nothing won. That's where I'm going to end it.
All right, Jim, Tampa Bay, New England. Oh, is Jim there?
No, I'm still here.
Oh.
I'm having a hard time keeping up with sort of the standard that you've created, Keith. That is fantastic, along with the music you have going on in the background.
It's mesmerizing, isn't it?
I can take it out of the monitor if you want.
No, I mean, you're just doing such a good job. I didn't really come as prepared as you for this. So, all right, I'm going to do my best. And I don't have that. And I'll tell you what kind of music it reminds me of later. But anyway.
Does it rhyme with Horno?
Maybe. Anyway.
I prefer adult.
The Patriots this game 3-0, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out boo-hooing them because they are 3-0. They're not the 3-0 Patriots of last year, the year before, the year before that. They're the non-sexy, not making the huge play with not Tom Brady for 350 yards and 4 TDs, 3-0 Patriots. They're not that team. But you know what? 225 yards passing, 2 passing TDs seem to work for Tom Brady. Their rushing game is in disarray, but thank God for Brandon Bolden, who actually put up 100 all-purpose yards. He's a guy to keep an eye on. He certainly could work himself in if Stephen Ridley continues to struggle. Kenbrell Tompkins, while he only had 41 yards receiving, those 2 passing TDs were huge. I like this kid, and I've always liked him. I've hung on to him where I can in fantasy leagues, hoping that when Gronkowski comes back and some more time goes by, that he and Brady really connect, and I think that could happen. The Patriots' defense is good. I don't know that they're a defense you want to go with this week, but they're good. The Buccaneers, man, they're a train wreck. Josh Freeman, I know Glennon's going to be starting for him, but nothing good is going to come out of that game this week. Doug Martin's the best bet to do something on a week-to-week basis. And even then, once they become one-dimensional, these guys could get shut down real fast.
All right. Saints 31, Cardinals 7. Not much to say about this game. Arizona scores first, and then apparently the Saints decided to show up. Drew Brees throws 3 scores as yet another defense forgets that Saints tight end Jimmy Graham is actually capable of catching a pass or two. There's nothing I like about the Cardinals, Bruce Arians and all, Carson Palmer and all, Larry Fitzgerald and all. There's nothing I like about that team. The Saints deserve to win this game 31-7. Stick a fork in Arizona. We're looking forward to next year. Yes, I said that after week 3. Steve-O, Detroit, Washington.
Wow. Stick a fork in them. Okay. Detroit, Washington. Detroit won 27-20. You got 2 different teams. You got one heading down, one heading up. You have Detroit, who honestly, with Washington having started 0-2, I thought they were going to win this game, being at home against a Detroit team missing Reggie Bush, who I still think is one of the most important players on their team this year. But Washington proved one thing. You can have a good quarterback like RG3, which this year I think he's only at the good quarterback level and not great or elite. You can have a good quarterback and a good offense, but the worst statistical defense in NFL history after 3 games, and you put them against Megatron and Matt Stafford, and you are lucky you only lost by 7. I think Washington is a train wreck. I will use one of Keith's terms he just used, put a fork in them. I think they are long done. And Detroit, I'm kind of on the fence with them. So I think if they get Reggie Bush back, Detroit can be a major powerhouse in the NFC. If he has those waffling injuries, they might be hanging around that 500 mark. So that's my take from this game.
All right, Jim, Giants and Carolina.
Wow. Tom Coughlin, welcome to the hot seat. You're not going to win a football game throwing the football 23 times and only completing 12 passes, Eli Manning. You're never going to win a football game by pretty much not passing the football to one of your top receivers in Team Knicks. You're never going to win a football game unless you establish a running game. And what you were thinking about getting rid of Ahmad Bradshaw and only trying to rely on David Wilson for an entire 17 games doesn't make any sense whatsoever, despite the fact that you have Andre Brown. You need as many quality running backs as possible, and I don't understand what's going on with their offensive line. They even drafted a top offensive lineman, and it's still a mess. Nothing's looking good for the Giants right now, and we'll see. Panthers, thank God Cam Newton came through this week because, I got to tell you, I was down on him in the preseason, and what we saw in this game was a sight for sore eyes. DeAngelo Williams is still running strong, considering he's a running back on the wrong side of 30. And Ted Ginn, how refreshing to see him score 2 touchdowns, 2 games in a row, up some meaningful yardage. This is a team that has been starving for a second wide receiver to pair with Steve Smith. And what's interesting is Steve Smith hasn't really been fantasy relevant this year. So where this goes from here, I can't wait to see.
All right. Ravens 30.
Did I mention their defense? Their defense is good.
Yeah, it's pretty good. There's your Bill Walton contribution to this segment.
It's pretty good.
Pretty good. Ravens 30, Texans 9. Interception return for a touchdown, a punt return TD, and an anemic offense, and then the opponent can't score a touchdown? Sure sounds like the old Ravens. I just cannot take the Texans seriously until they at least contend in games like this. Don't ask me to point out a trend. This game should have been when they were at least in position to win. Good teams at least hang around until the end. Contenders find a way to win this one. The Texans did neither. Steve-O, Atlanta-Miami.
Atlanta-Miami. This is, okay. Miami won 27-23 over Atlanta. You have 2 teams, one that everyone expected to go to the Super Bowl in Atlanta, and one everyone expected to be an improved team in Miami. Now you have a team in the Falcons who is 1-2. They have injury concerns with both Roddy White and Steven Jackson out. Then you have a team like Miami who has a stud defense and an equally impressive quarterback in Ryan Tannehill, who left injured in the game, came back, led a game-winning drive in the last minutes against a team, once again, like I said, should everyone expected to be in the Super Bowl. To me, I think Atlanta is destined to potentially not make the playoffs this year if they continue to play the way they are. And the Dolphins, they're going to go nothing but up. But this week will be their first, in my opinion, real test when they have to go to New Orleans and that insane offense of the Saints. So to me, I couldn't be more impressed by Miami.
All right, Jim, Buffalo at the Jets.
Wow, this was a game that if you belong to Bills Mafia, you must be sorely disappointed. I know I am. The Bills team is sort of starting to disappoint, and they're kind of showing that they're not a complete team. This was a team that I thought their defense would come through and shut the door on the Jets. C.J. Spiller not being healthy certainly hurts, but you still got Freddie Jacks, God bless him. And they're going to, E.J. Manuel's got to get off throwing just 1 passing TD per game. He needs to get to 2. He needs to get to 3 for the Bills to make that next step. On the other hand, the Jets, I got to tell you, Geno Smith in week 3 to throw for over 330 yards, get a passing TD, get a rushing TD. Are those not just good football quarterback numbers, but aren't they really good fantasy football numbers? You bet. Jaguars, why didn't you draft this kid? Needed him.
Oh, they were waiting for Tim Tebow to be available. No, I'm kidding. That's a joke. Enough of that.
Wow.
Enough of that.
They're going to get Brett Favre for a bit.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, Bilal Powell, wow, this kid can motor. And, with Chris Ivory out, he's going to carry the load. But Geno Smith playing well, San Antonio Holmes, and last year, really good rookie, who now is a sophomore, starting to make his impact felt, Stephen Hill. They both impressed with 100-plus receiving, TD apiece. And that was with a Jets D that sacked E.J. Manuel 8 times.
Colts 27, 49ers 7. Well, no one saw that coming, did they? The 49ers are clearly out of sync on offense, and losing a player like tight end Vernon Davis will do that to you. Wide receiver Michael Crabtree still being injured isn't helping either. But that being said, injuries happen to everyone. Quarterback Colin Kaepernick has to be better. You also have to tip your cap to the Colts defense, who held the Niners offense to 254 total yards and 3 for 12 on third down. Trent Richardson scores his TD in his first game as a Colt, and Ahmad Bradshaw runs for almost 100 as the Colts hold the ball for 36 minutes and win a big game on the road. Steve-O, Jacksonville, Seattle.
What do you get when you put the best team in football against the worst team in football? The answer to that is a 45-17 drubbing of Jacksonville from Seattle. Seattle, I don't know what you can say. They are the best team because they are the most well-rounded team as far as offensively, defensively. To me, it's a no-brainer. They proved that last week when they drubbed the 49ers. Seattle is the class of the league, and Jacksonville, when I was watching the highlights of that game, I was almost expecting their players to be wearing the red mesh jerseys that the practice teams wear when they play against actual teams. And that's what I have to say about that.
All right, Jim, Bears at Steelers, the Sunday night game.
Well, since I don't have my own music, I thought I would sing at least part of music. Bear down.
Nice.
Go Bears. Make every play, clear the way to victory. So there you go. So
that was beautiful.
Yeah. So look, the Bears, they start off strong here, 3-0. They have not.
There you go. I gave it to you.
All right. So Bears start off the season strong, 3-0. They have an opportunity to really take sort of a commanding lead in the NFC North. Would have went this weekend over the Lions. Just impressive. And another impressive outing by Matt Forte. Over 100 all-purpose yards, 1 TD. I think Matt Forte is en route to being a top 5 running back this year, as well as a fantasy football running back. So if you got him, God bless you. Bears defense. Oh, my God. These guys are phenomenal. 2 defensive touchdowns. Now, everybody has been jumping up and down about Jay Cutler, and I just want to stop everybody from jumping up and down and really just be real about this. If you didn't realize it, Jay Cutler only threw for 159 yards and 1 passing TD. If the defense didn't score those 2 touchdowns, the Bears only won this game 26-23. So before we sit here and make Jay Cutler the mayor of Chicago, why don't you think twice about that? And if you're a Steelers fan, my God, did you not see Ben Roethlisberger put up over 400 yards passing in 2 passing TDs? That was amazing. I mean, against a Bears defense that we've just sat here and complimented, if it wasn't for those 2 defensive touchdowns, they may not have looked good in this game. Thank God Antonio Brown stepped it up because the Steelers are desperately in need of a star on this team. Would you please get Marcus Wheaton on the field? Lastly, Le'Veon Bell looks like he's back this week. You got him in fantasy, start him.
Really? Start him?
I'm starting him. Start him.
Wow. It's because I have him on my team. I also have Alfred Morris and Matt Forte. Would you bench any one of those guys for Le'Veon Bell?
Ooh, Morris might be close. Forte, no way. He's my top start this week. But I have Le'Veon Bell as a top 5 in terms of favorable matchups. This is favorable.
Okay. We'll talk offline. Okay. All right, Broncos 37, Raiders 21, the Monday night game. The Raiders scored 21 points on the Broncos. The Jaguars scored 17 on the Seahawks. The Giants couldn't score a point against the Panthers, just wanted to hammer that point home. Look, Peyton Manning goes 32 for 37, 374 yards, 3 touchdowns. He's completing 67% of his passes for the season so far. It's fair to say he's playing the position about as good as one can while playing with cinder blocks on his feet. So for the Raiders, quarterback Terrell Pryor actually had a decent stat line, 19 to 28, 281, and a 73-yard touchdown pass to Denarius B.I.G. Moore. Running back Darren McFadden threw a touchdown pass, which gives him more than Matt Flynn, so go figure. Denver's defense limits the Raiders to 2.9 yards per carry on the ground as they just go out and play ball and let Mr. Manning do what he does, cut the heart out of every opponent. And there you have it, folks. That is your NFL Week 3 recap on 87sportsfans.com. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to get into the games that we disagree on for Week 4 all around the NFL. You are listening to 87 Live on 87 Sports Fans Radio.
Balanced on the brink, we'll
You're listening to 87 Live on 87 Sports Fans Radio. We are in the last part of the show, the NFL Hour with Jim Serantias, the Fantasy Greek. Follow him on Twitter, folks, at the Fantasy Greek, and the website is thefantasygreek.com. All of your fantastic fantasy teams, which are not operating so fantastic right now, that's where you go. And check out the Skybox, folks. I'm telling you, it's worth it. It's worth every penny. So we just got done going through Week 3, our impressions of the game. I hope everybody liked that little NFL roundtable. For the week last week, Mr. Serantias took the title 9-7, and then I was 8-8, and Steve-O 7-9. So now we'll see how this week shakes out. Of all of our picks last week, I was most impressed that all three of us were able to see the Dolphins winning that game against the Falcons last week. But games that all three of us missed on, all three of us picked the Packers. All three of us picked the Chargers. All three of us picked the Giants. All three of us picked the Texans. All three of us picked the Bills. All three of us picked the Niners.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's like if I had a DeLorean, everything would make sense. So let's go through this week's games, and for once we have plenty of time to do it in. We have 25 minutes before the end of the show. We'll start with tomorrow night's game. The San Francisco 49ers travel to the St. Louis Rams. We all agree that the Niners are going to win that. St. Louis is a team. You know what? This is a game where San Francisco looks so out of whack going on the road to St. Louis, a Jeff Fisher team. This is a game where I wouldn't be surprised if St. Louis steals this one, but I'm picking San Francisco. Anybody else?
I agree with you. I think this is one of these games that, regardless of how I personally feel that the 49ers have a great team, even without Aldon Smith, Jeff Fisher, he's a good coach. That's a good defense on paper that is not playing up to the level that it should be playing. So we'll see.
All right.
No, I agree. It should be the Niners, but once again, as we proved last week, some of our guarantees turned out to be eggs. So
right. Chicago at Detroit, we're all picking the Bears. This is another game where I feel that the home team could end up coming out on top just because Chicago has shown a penchant for being passed on, and that's all that the Lions do is pass the ball. So,
see, for me, this week and next week could potentially be the two most important games for the Bears this season. Because once again, right now they're 3-0, and everyone is giving the whole ho-hum. They are who we thought we were type of Dennis Green thing. They're not that team they're not that team that's living up to a 3-0 record. They got lucky in a couple times. Their offense is kind of sputtering. Their defense gets turnovers, but they still go up a lot of points. So to me, this week against the Lions and next week against the Saints, if the Bears can pull off those two games, I think it will solidify them as true contenders in the NFC. But if they lose these two games, because it's not going to be easy against Detroit and against New Orleans, I think it could make for an interesting time in Chicago.
Agreed, Jim.
I agree. I mean, this is all about Jay Cutler, and as I pointed out in the previous segment, he hasn't sort of lived up to the thing that this team really needs, which is not even an elite quarterback, an almost elite quarterback. I think it's a big game. I agree. I think the Lions are going to pass the ball. A lot depends on Peanut Tillman. If he's healthy, I hope he is, because he's a guy that can shut down Calvin Johnson. I agree. I think this is a huge game, and see what happens.
All right, we are also picking the Baltimore Ravens to stroll into Buffalo and beat the Bills. Buffalo's played tough, and E.J. Manuel has actually done a much better job than I would have imagined, but they just don't have the pieces there yet. And Baltimore I think they found something last week against Houston. And whatever it was that was eluding them the first 2 weeks against the Browns and the Broncos, they did a really, really nice job on a Texans offense that it may not be as good as advertised, but it's still a pretty good team. So I kind of think Baltimore may be, quote unquote, back to what we expect them to be. What do you guys think?
Well, I look at Baltimore and I see a team. Of course, they're not at the level they were at last year, but they are still a very good team. Just probably not an elite team. And going again against Buffalo, who, as you were saying, they have a defense that, in my opinion, is kind of underperforming. They have an offense with E.J. Manuel, who is going through his struggles right now. And then even at running back, kind of something I mentioned last week, C.J. Spiller is still not the C.J. Spiller that I think everyone is expecting this year. Fred Jackson, statistically, is still the better running back on that team, even though it's obvious that C.J. Spiller is younger, has much greater ability. So I think Buffalo needs to really kind of figure out who they are and get themselves on the right page. And a lot of the criticism has gone on E.J. Manuel because he's a rookie and he's been struggling. But if you watched that game last week against the Jets, a lot of those plays that he either threw it away, made a bad throw, or got sacked, no one was open. His wide receivers are not doing what they need to do to help a young quarterback like Manuel. So, I mean, honestly, this was one of the easiest picks for me. I think Baltimore is a lot better in a lot of ways, and they are going to win this game.
This harkens back to when we had our little preseason show, and I picked the Ravens to win the division. That first week against the Broncos was just such an anomaly to what I think this Ravens defense is like. Past 2 weeks, they have allowed 15 points combined offensively. And then in terms of overall yardage combined, I think each team has roughly put up 260, 270 total yards of offense. This is a defense that's ready to go. All we need to get is the offense caught up. And I think that they're going to win this game, and they're going to win it fairly handily. I expect Torrey Smith to have a big game. I think Bernard Pierce is just fine filling in. For the Bills, I still like Spiller. I know I had to talk somebody off the ledge of trading Spiller earlier. And he missed out in the last game because he got hurt. And I think he is. I think he's a little banged up. They're lucky to have Fred Jackson to fill in nicely for him. But I think Spiller just, once he's healthy again, he'll be fine.
All right, and Cincinnati at Cleveland. We're all picking the Bengals here. Cleveland was a nice story last week with Brian Hoyer, but Cincinnati's defense is the real deal, regardless of whether they can run the ball or not. They managed to do just enough and get a little lucky to beat Green Bay. So I don't see any reason why they shouldn't have a problem with Cleveland. The Giants at Kansas City, based on what we saw last week out of Kansas City's defense, the Giants are way out of sync offensively, and Kansas City's defense should feast on that at home. We're all picking Kansas City. Indianapolis over Jacksonville is a unanimous vote. Seattle over Houston is a unanimous vote as well. This game...
Can I say something on that Seattle versus Houston game?
Absolutely.
I think the Texans, if there's a potential game that the Texans sort of can make a comeback state, because they're not playing like the Texans of last year. No. Their defense is not playing as well as last year. Their offense seemed to be doing just fine until last weekend. I mean, this is an opportunity for them to be at home and take on a top contending team, and hopefully, if they can't win it, at least go toe-to-toe with them. So it's a big game, and I had a hard time with this. I thought, maybe this is one of the home games that the home team should win. I don't think so, but, man, the Texans really need a big win against a great team, and this is one of those potential games.
Yeah, I would love to see them get Arian Foster going, because he's one of my favorite players, and to see him only 190 yards in the first 3 weeks, I want to see him do more, because I know that he has it in him, and he has it in him to be one of the elite running backs in the league, and it's kind of sad to see him kind of sputtering like this.
Yeah, and it's sad because I got to tell you, with Andre Johnson, I mean, I have him on one team, and if and I'm going to do the best I can to actually bench him, because that secondary is just so good on Seattle. It's hard for me to say that because I think he could do well even against a top corner, but I think this is just a different defense, and I don't know.
Well, especially if he's not 100%, if he's still dealing with some of the injuries he had from last week.
Yeah, for sure, but he's Andre Johnson. even when Cortland Finnegan was there, Cortland won some, he won some.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that Andre can win this one.
Yeah, I just don't like it with the matchup with Andre Johnson. Even if he plays less than 100%, Seattle's too good defensively, and Russell Wilson has just been on a tear. So, even though I say that, I know that his numbers weren't all that great last week, but you watched
4 touchdowns. That was the only numbers you had to worry about.
That's what I mean. You watch the Seahawks play; he's playing as well as he can. We're all picking the Titans over the Jets. They're at home. The Titans' defense has been as good as we could have hoped, a little bit better. Jake Locker has been better than we thought. We're picking the Broncos over the Eagles at home. Philadelphia can run and gun all they want, but Peyton Manning is going to get that ball and he's going to hold it, and he's going to move that ball down the field. I like the Broncos there as well. All right, so the games that we disagreed with now. Pittsburgh at Minnesota. Jim and I are picking the Steelers on the road, and Steve-O, you are picking the Vikings. What's your justify yourself to the two of us, will you?
Well, after watching that game with Chicago, and Pittsburgh at times looked really good, but just overall, I don't have that same feeling with Pittsburgh. They look like, some of the plays that they scored on, the Bears just fell asleep. Their defense looked great at times. It looked horrendous at times. And to me, Minnesota, their big issue has been Christian Ponder. And a lot of people were saying that, after watching what Todd Haley has done in pretty much helping the Pittsburgh Steelers being 0-3 now that he's the offensive coordinator on that team, a lot of people are saying that he's the reason that Matt Castle left New England and then fizzled in Kansas City. Todd Haley just ruined him. So having Matt Castle have a second chance on a team like Minnesota that has the weapons like Adrian Peterson on offense, I don't see Pittsburgh being able to pull this one out. And I think that they're also making a mistake. If they do stick with this, they were saying that they were going to run a normal week and fly to London on Thursday, get there Friday, and kind of go do their walkthrough on Saturday. I don't know if that's necessarily, I know, Keith, you like to point the whole East Coast, West Coast thing. To me, I think the whole jet lag of flying across the Atlantic, going to a different country, that to me, I think might actually be a negative factor for them. I know they want to try to keep them on a normal routine, but this isn't a normal game. This is a situation where, and I'm against the whole London thing with the NFL, but this is a situation where I think maybe you need to rethink this whole thing and get your team there sooner, get them over the whole jet lag, get them more situated in their surroundings, and then play their game. So to me, I just think Minnesota has too much going for them. I know they're both 0-3, but I think the talent level on Minnesota is much higher than Pittsburgh.
Steve, I agree with you. I think that it doesn't make any sense to fly over on a Thursday. I'm wondering if Mike Tomlin has ever done that himself. I mean, I thought to myself, why are you guys waiting until Thursday? Because when I've traveled, it's exhausting. Even if it's just a 6-hour flight, I want to say it's 6 or 8 from Chicago. Maybe it's 6 from New York to London. It's exhausting. So I don't understand that, but fair enough.
I think
the problem with the Vikings is that team can't win. They've had opportunities to win their first 3 games, and they have failed time after time. This last game, we saw something about the Steelers, or what I saw in Ben Roethlisberger, 400-plus yards passing and multiple TDs, to me is impressive. Antonio Brown is coming around. They're getting Le'Veon Bell back. Everybody knows how to shut down Adrian Peterson, and that's what everybody's doing. You look at his numbers, he's a top 3 running back, but he's not the guy that I think everybody thought he was going to be going into this season. And I think the Steelers, I don't care who's the quarterback for the Vikings, whether it's Matt Castle or Christian Ponder, there's one stat that is absolutely amazing, and Jay Cutler held to it. The Steelers are number 1 against quarterbacks. They don't give up a bunch of touchdowns, and they don't give up a bunch of yardage. So I think the Vikings lose this one, and I dare say they might lose it big.
What I saw of the Pittsburgh Steelers was that their defense is not the problem. They still are bringing all kinds of confusing looks and blitzes, and they're not having any problem getting near the quarterback, and they're stuffing the run. And if you're going to stuff the run, you're going to bring 7, 8 guys in the box, and you're going to try to stuff Adrian Peterson and let Matt Castle beat you. He's not throwing to Andre Johnsons or Calvin Johnsons. He's throwing to Jerome Simpson, Cordero Patterson, and the like.
Jennings. Don't forget about Greg Jennings.
Oh, sorry, Greg Jennings, who was MIA for the first 2 weeks of the season, or first week of the season.
Well, that's also what I'm interested to see with Matt Castle. Does this help Greg Jennings to have a quarterback that's proven that he can be a success to where, Ponder he still has not shown that he can be that guy. Yeah. But Castle did show that when he took over for Tom Brady, that he has the ability. Mind you, he was playing for a great team, but he does have that ability.
No, I hear you. I think Pittsburgh is a good team playing bad right now.
And now remember one thing also about Adrian Peterson. His season last year started almost identical to this season. He had struggles early on in the first few games, and then he blew up. So I'd be very interested to see what happens with him the rest of the season.
Okay. The next game that there's a disagreement about, Arizona at Tampa Bay. Steve and Jim are both picking the Cardinals to go on the road and beat Tampa Bay at home. I am picking Tampa Bay because I believe Mike Glennon should have been the starter at week 1, and that playing at home against the Cardinals, which there's nothing exciting about the Cardinals at all. I don't care about Tyrann Mathieu. There's nothing exciting about the Cardinals at all on defense. And they still have Doug Martin. And the number one thing that can take the pressure off a young quarterback is a good running back and a good running attack. And I think the Cardinals are the perfect patsy to start a first-year quarterback on. So I am going to pick the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to win Mike Glennon's debut, just like the Browns did for Brian Hoyer.
This is why I agree. I think Mike Glennon has the potential. But Tampa Bay's coach pretty much said today, the reason why we're starting him before a bye week is so he can see what he screwed up and fix it during that week. Because he's never seen game time like this. He's never played in a game, in an NFL game. He's sat on the sideline these first 3 and watched the nightmare that was Tampa. And Arizona is a lot better than I think you're giving them credit for. Yeah, they've had a hard beginning to the season, but they've played a couple good teams. And you look at it, last week they got just destroyed by New Orleans. But I still think they have something. Carson Palmer has shown something in his return. And you can't expect a rookie quarterback to start already in the season and have success. I don't know if it's ever happened. I just can't see it happening.
They're extremely vulnerable at the linebacker level in the Cardinals defense. Their secondary is decent, but they haven't been able to put it all together, put a scheme together that translates into getting a whole lot of stops. And Doug Martin, like I said, is the key to making Mike Glennon's life easy. I'm not saying he's going to go out and he's going to put up a Peyton Manning stat line. Let's not get stupid about it. Mm-hmm. But I think that there's enough on Tampa Bay to beat the Cardinals at home.
I can't see Mike Glennon having a good game. I don't even think he's going to have a good enough game to get anything really good on tape.
No.
Everything I've seen from him, from the Senior Bowl practices I saw him in, any little glimpses through the preseason, some of the stuff you get to see on TV with, at practice, he just looks like a guy that the game might be too big for him. Mm-hmm. And if that in fact holds true, I think he's in a hole and he'll never get out. I myself consider Doug Martin, when I was putting together my top 5 defense and special team starts this week in terms of favorable matchups, and picked the Cardinals. And the problem with Doug Martin in this matchup is the Cardinals are top 3 against the rush. They've only allowed in 3 games, let me see what that number is again, it's 220 yards rushing. So they're not even giving up 100-yard rushing to a normal running back. And now you're going to put Doug Martin in there, and you're going to have him run against a top defense, and they're just going to stuff that box and say, Mike Glennon, you beat us on the corners. And I don't think Mike Glennon's going to be able to do that. So that's why I'm picking him. Mike Lennon could prove us wrong. And, the Bucks, we can't forget they have a great defense. I don't care what happened last week with the Patriots. I still think they have a good defense. They certainly have one of the best secondaries in the league. The whole issue this offseason was the Bucks spent a lot of money on the defense and not any money on the offensive line.
Yeah. And to go with what you were saying, Jim, I think one of the problems that Glennon has is the fact that the running game is pretty much going to be stymied. And his, at least so far this season, the top target on the team in Vincent Jackson has a rib injury, who he might play, he might not. Even if he does, is he going to be 100%? That, to me, also kind of degrades their chances more and more.
And, Steve, I got to ask you, the linebacking situation for the Cardinals are Carlos Dansby, Jasper Brinkley, Dante Moak. What's wrong with these guys?
I don't think there's anything wrong with those guys.
I
think, Keith, you answered this thing.
Sorry.
Yeah.
That's right.
No, you brought up their rushing stats, okay, their defensive rushing stats and how wonderful they've done. They've played St. Louis, Detroit, and New Orleans. None of those teams have shown a penchant for a substantial running attack. They haven't been able to lick their chops yet. As far as what's wrong with that linebacking core, I don't know. I haven't watched a lot of Cardinals games, okay, but when I'm thinking about impact players on the Cardinals defense, you get to players like Kelly Campbell, Dan Williams, and Darnell Dockett on the line, and then you get to Dansby's the only real name on there. You got an undrafted free agent in Jasper Brinkley, who may be decent, but not really going to strike fear into anybody. And then you got a secondary with Patrick Peterson and the rookie Tyrann Mathieu, and Gerard Powers and Jeremiah Bell, who's up and down. So they're decent, but that linebacking core, out of those three levels of the defense, the linebacking core is the deficiency.
I like it.
Once again, though, you're talking about a linebacking core that's playing against a rookie quarterback, playing his first game. Even a linebacking core that is even in your opinion deficient, they still have that going for them, that they are playing against somebody that's never had to face an NFL linebacker before.
That's my gut, and I'm going with it.
I think it. It makes sense. It's a good analysis of something going on that I certainly didn't consider. I'm not going to change my mind, but I still think that the key is stopping Doug Martin, and after that, I just can't see Mike Lennon beating the Cardinals defense. But if Doug Martin gets it going, this could be a huge game for him.
Oh, absolutely, because I think he's going to, if the flow of the game allows, you're probably going to see 25 to 30 touches.
Yeah.
All right, Washington at Oakland. Jim and I are picking the Redskins. Steve, do you really think the Redskins are that done that you're picking the Raiders?
Well, once again, I think RG3 is nothing. I think that offense is struggling. He's still trying to find his identity now, because obviously he's not the same guy from last year. He doesn't have the confidence or honestly, and I don't blame him for this, he doesn't have the same abilities because of the limitations from his injury. He's not the same, and it's just, to me, their defense is that bad. Their defense is horrendous. Easily, in my opinion, the worst in the NFL is their defense. And the fact that you're going to Oakland, playing against a team like the Raiders, which, along with a lot of these players that we said are going to have breakout days, this is a perfect situation for McFadden to finally have that big breakout day. And then hopefully, if he's back from the concussion, Terrell Pryor, there's nothing that tells me he won't be able to run all over that defense. So to me, if they were at Washington, I might have thought differently, but being at Oakland, I just don't have any faith whatsoever in the Redskins. Redskins and the Giants right now, I have zero faith in. They're going to have to do something to prove me wrong.
All right. Dallas at San Diego. Jim and I are picking the Cowboys. Steve, you feel that San Diego will take this one?
I think the Chargers are better than what they were last week, and I don't think the Cowboys are as good as what they showed last week. I still think the Chargers, these are both two teams, in my opinion, that are going to be kind of middle of the road, but what the Chargers did 2 weeks ago, to me, shows the potential they have. And I think being at San Diego, once again, Dallas being on the road, I think is gonna be a negative for them.
So do you
And
think
I see Phillip Rivers having, another 4-touchdown game.
you think Dallas has a worse defense than Tennessee?
Yes. As of what I've seen so far, yes.
Okay.
I just want to throw out there the number 1,022. It's the amount of yards passing that the Chargers defense has given up in 3 games.
Well, I'm not saying the Chargers defense is anything to write home about, but I just think their offense is going to be one of those high scoring games where the Chargers offense is just going to put up just enough points to win the game.
All right. New England at Atlanta. Jim and I are picking the Patriots to stroll into Atlanta. Steve, justify yourself for picking the Falcons.
Maybe we should be justifying ourselves.
No. This is
again,
what
like
this
I said last week, I think the Patriots are one of the worst 3-0 teams out there. They've had the luck of having an easy schedule to start their season, a very easy schedule to start their season. And to me, Atlanta at home, they are one of the toughest teams to beat at home. And this really is a must-win game for them.
Absolutely.
So when you put Matt Ryan in a situation where he's playing at home in a must-win game, I just do not see Atlanta losing this game. And like I said, the Patriots, they're 3-0, but they are a very shaky 3-0. I mean, they've gotten very lucky. I mean, you look at the first 2 weeks against the Jets and the Bills, and they were in a position to lose both of those games. So you're looking at a team that, they beat a dysfunctional team in the Jets, a dysfunctional team in the Bills, and a very dysfunctional team in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So to me, you put those 3 together, that's just absolute garbage. So now they actually have to play against a real team like Atlanta, who even is struggling, but they're still the Atlanta Falcons at home. To me, this was actually an easy one. I didn't know that there would be this much of a debate over it.
Well, I look at Atlanta. What I don't like about Atlanta is the amount of people that weren't practicing today. Sam Baker did not participate. Roddy White did not participate. Steven Jackson did not participate. Julio Jones was a limited participant. If this team was at 100% health, I would probably pick Atlanta at home. I just think that New England is one of those. They don't have the names on the paper, but they just seem to go out and win games. It seems like one of those type of teams, and they still have some guy Brady at quarterback too. So that's why I'm picking the Patriots. Jim?
Yeah, and I'm agreeing with you, Steve, or Keith. I'm sorry, I'm agreeing with you, Keith. The Falcons are not at 100%, and I think it's starting to show. I mean, the Atlanta Falcons that lost last week to the Dolphins, that was a different team. If they had some of these people there, that would be a different result, but it's not. And I think the Patriots, even though I don't know that they're the worst 3-0 team out there, they're not a great 3-0 team, but they're starting to get healthy. They're starting to develop. The kinds of numbers that the Falcons are giving up to opposing quarterbacks, and not even impressive opposing quarterbacks, are the kinds of numbers that Tom Brady can do in his sleep. He just needs to get the rest of the players up to his pace. And I think he's doing that. It was telling that Kenbrell Tompkins had a couple of TD catches last week. And I think it was telling how he got all his other tight ends and receivers into the game. If they get Gronkowski back, I don't even think this game will be close. And the Patriots defense is a pretty good defense.
But see, I take last week's loss to Miami. Atlanta banged up. I don't think anyone will disagree that they are very banged up. On the road against a team that all 3 of us think are very impressive and an up-and-coming team in Miami, they lost by 4 points on a last-second touchdown in that game. So, I mean, you're talking about a team that, they played, and even the game, week 1 loss against New Orleans, they were in that game up until the end. You have a team that played, a New Orleans team that is one of the best in the league, 3-0. A Miami team is one of the best in the league at 3-0. A St. Louis team who is underperformed the last couple of weeks, but is, they have signs, not only coaching, but on their team that they can be a great team. Going against a team, like I said, that has played 3 absolute crappers and found a way to be 3-0, barely by beating those 3 teams. So it's just, to me, I will be shocked if Atlanta loses this game. Flat out shocked.
Okay. And the last game, as we are ticking down to almost no time left, will be a little bit over tonight, but oh well. Miami at New Orleans. Steve and Jim are both picking the Saints at home on Monday night. I am being the lone Dolphins gladiator supporter, riding this ship into the ground. They've held their 3 previous opponents. Granted, they opened the season with Cleveland, but they've played Andrew Luck and Matt Ryan in the last 2 weeks. And for the season, the opposing quarterback has a 68.7 rating for the year. That alone, I believe the Miami Dolphins go to 4-0 on Monday Night Football.
Wow.
And
see, it's, to me, Drew Brees, in my opinion, is the most consistent quarterback in the NFL right now. Consistent as far as I'm going to put up 300 yards and a number of touchdowns. And this Saints offense is starting to look a lot like their Super Bowl winning offense. And that's what's kind of scary because, I don't think anyone really they thought the Saints would be better this year. Of course, they couldn't be worse than last year. But, man, they are looking like the greatest show on turf, part 3.
But, Steve, I disagree with you. I don't think it's that their offense is looking like the Super Bowl offense. I think it's their defenses. And I think that, to me, is sort of the deciding factor here. Like, if we back up for a second and we look at the Patriots and the Falcons game, that game is an important game for those two teams. The Falcons are sitting there going, we have to win this game at home. We should win this game at home. They're a good team at home. And the Patriots, if they win that game, they're going to gain so much confidence out of that game. It's the same thing in this case. I mean, this is a game the Saints should win at home. Yes. And it's a game if the Dolphins can win it. I mean, everybody on Monday will be saying on Tuesday will be saying the Dolphins are for real. And I'm sitting there looking at Ryan Tannehill, who I'm actually starting in one league as I have Aaron Rodgers and on the bye. And I'm like, man, I hope he can do it because so far I think his best game has been 1 TD. And if it was 2, he had low yardage. He hasn't really impressed me so far. And this is an opportunity for him to do that. And so if the Dolphins win this, Tuesday we'll be like, oh, my God. But I can't see that with the way the Saints defense has been playing so far. Another underrated unit, another unit I've been telling people you should pick up at least as your second defense.
All right. Outstanding.
Is that it? Are we done?
Outstanding show, gentlemen.
Wow.
Jim, thanks for joining us again.
Thank you, guys.
Same bat time, same bat channel next week. Listen to 87 Live on 87 Sports Fans Radio. Go to 87sportsfans.com.
Post-game show is brought to you by Christ, I can't find it. The hell with it.